It is my joy today to be introducing our guest. We are bringing on Kathi Lipp, who is my longtime friend, to talk about her newest book, Sabbath, SOUP. But I want to pause for a moment here and just say what a wonderful friend Kathi has been over the years. And I was thinking as we scheduled this, before we get into the topic of the day, that the last time we had you on was during the shutdown, during COVID,
Oh, wow.
because you had a book come out about preparing for emergencies.
Mhm.
And we were in like week 2. And we threw out the old topic or whatever it was, or we paused it and we said, okay, nothing feels relevant right now to anybody,
Right.
but we're going to have Kathi on. And you were able to step right in. And I remember where I was upstairs in my living room recording, and it was just the most bizarro time. So
Yeah.
some life has happened since that moment
Yes.
and now,
Yeah.
and you've had some books come out
Mhm.
in that time, but your loyalty and your friendship has continued. And I was able to message you and say, let's have you on the podcast. And we just kind of picked up where we left off. And it had been a while. So that
Yeah.
is the sign of a good friend. So that is part of my introduction of
Oh,
Kathi Lipp, that I know that even though we haven't talked for a while, we can pick up right where we left off. So let me tell people a little bit about you officially. Kathi Lipp is the Publishers Weekly bestselling author of 20 books, including this new one that we're going to talk about, and also The Accidental Homesteader, Overwhelmed, and the very popular Clutter Free. Along with being part of the Encourage at Dayspring, the writing team there, she is also the host of Clutter Free Academy podcast. Kathi lives on her red house mini homestead with her husband, Roger, and 9-pound dog, Moose, and regularly hosts their blended family of 6, which I love seeing pictures of. Writers' retreats happen there at the house too, and loads of people they love come. And it is really fun to be your friend on Facebook, Kathi, because I do get to see the different combinations of people that you bring into your home and how you really welcome people in a beautiful way through food and intention and time together. So all of that leads into our topic for today. So welcome back to the podcast,
oh,
Kathi.
Krista and Alex. Okay, first of all, like those are the kindest, like for you to say those things and recognize those things are just huge. And can I just say, I know for me, friendships have changed dramatically, not just since the pandemic, but really, just in how we move through the world. And I am so grateful because if it was not for social media, if it was not for these podcasts, you know, probably Alex, your story and my story would have ended with mops and I never would have met Krista. And so people mourn that, relationships happen online and not in real life. But how much poorer would my life be if I didn't have the friends that I only get to see online, that I only get to cheer on from the top bleachers, not from the field. And I'm really grateful that we can just pick up because you have a busy life. Krista has I have a busy life. But when we do get to intersect, it's so rich and so sweet. And we have the backlog of seeing what's going on with your kids and what's going on in your business. And so it doesn't feel as detached as, and I do have some friends who kind of insist on they want phone time or eye to eye time. And I feel, because of where I live, I'm like, I don't get to do that very often. And so I'm really grateful for social media. And I really believe that God uses it as a tool many times for good. Everything in our lives can be used for good or for evil. And I'm grateful that I get a lot of good out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, let's cheer on our friends that we only see online, which
Right.
is true that it's often people who live far away from us, though
Yeah.
not always. Sometimes
Not
it's
always.
people that we just are busy.
Yes.
And we are going to talk about the pace of our lives today as we talk about this topic of Sabbath and soup. But first of all, can we just recognize that it's soup season? I feel
Yes.
like fall is cozy time. Krista and
Mm.
we are fall people. Are you a
Mhm.
fall person, Kathy?
It is my number one favorite season. It has been
Mm-hmm.
since I've been a little kid. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a heat girl. I do
Mm-hmm.
not like to be warm. I told Roger before we got married, don't let me get too tired, too hot, or too hungry. And if all three happen at the same time, may God have mercy on your soul. So fall is hope for me,
Yeah.
Mhm.
like coziness. And I'm a
Mm-hmm.
redhead, so I only wear fall colors.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's everything all at once.
Well, and it's interesting because the book covers too tired and too hungry, and then fall
Right.
covers too hot.
It's
So
so
this book
true.
really is intended for fall.
It
Uh,
really is an extension of me and my love of fall. You are
Mhm.
correct.
well, so we're just getting it out there. It's soup season, but soup is good year round, and Sabbath is good year round. But we are going to be talking about this in November because it just feels so cozy and delightful.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
yeah. So let's talk about the title, Sabbath Soup. Why
Yeah.
these two things together, and
Right.
then we can break apart each one.
It's a little weird tradition that we've kind of started in our household where uh, I, when we blended our family, which was about 19 years ago, after a couple of years, I said, we need some downtime. We need some rest. And it's like, I had never been brought up in a Sabbath tradition. That was not a part of who I was growing up or anything. So I was like, okay, we're not going to work. We're not going to clean the house. We're not going to do anything. So everybody can just kind of rest. We can have an interruption to our routine. But then I realized I was working like a dog on Sabbath to make sure that everybody was fed, because you can skip chores, you cannot mow the lawn, but everybody, including me, still wants to eat. And we had a blended family of six. Uh, Going out to eat was not a regular option. It just
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
wasn't. So I was still cooking a ton in order to make sure the troops got fed. And I finally decided, okay, one of the things I need to do is cook a little bit ahead. And I know I love soup. I love soup. And soup to me is the perfect make ahead meal, because if you make it on Friday or Saturday, it only tastes better on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Mm-hmm.
ingredients are melding, those flavors are awesome. So I started to make soup a couple of days ahead, let it cool down, whether it was in the slow cooker or on the stove, and then put it in the fridge. And then when we get home from church, just either, put it back on the stove, or if it was in the slow cooker, I would just throw it on before we went to church, let it heat up. And it was like I was taking care of my future self. I
Mm-hmm.
was past Kathy was giving future Kathy a big old hug and saying,
Yes.
now you can sit down and watch a movie.
Mhm.
Or, and I would love to say, oh, we all gather around the table and sing hymns of praise and eat our soup. It's usually like we're watching a movie like Young Frankenstein or something. But it's a break in our
Mm-hmm.
routine that we so desperately needed. So we kind of built on that, okay, soup is Sunday after church. Okay, Saturday night is kind of our big meal. So we do like a roast chicken or a pot roast or something like that. And then Sunday night was a family favorite, lasagna, chicken enchilada casserole, something like that. And so just by making those three meals, we were really able to kind of almost feed ourselves for a week, because uh talk about the chicken, we would make that into something else. I call it loop meals, leftovers on purpose. So
Mm.
you take that shredded chicken and you make a chicken quesadilla or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The lasagna, you're going to make enough for 2 meals. The soup, there's always leftovers with soup. I don't care how many people are there, there's always leftovers of soup. And so it just made it made our Sundays quieter and the rest of our week run better.
Mm.
Absolutely. I love what you said about the way I interpret that is how can you set your life and yourself up for success?
Yeah.
And there are things that we can do. We can be smart about how we are preparing food. We can be smart
Mhm.
about when we're preparing food
Mhm.
because everybody has to eat. And whether you're
Right.
cooking for 2 or 1 or 10,
Mhm.
right? You need to eat and people need to eat.
Right.
So then how do you go about I just want to hear practically, like how do you
Yeah.
go about even grocery shopping and
Yeah.
planning. And in fact, yesterday I was like, I need to get a better app for
Mm.
when I have, these 4 meals I'm making, I can just throw them in and it spits out a grocery list. I'm like, I know there's an app that does that. Why
You
am I
know
not
what?
using it?
Do you know what the app is called?
What?
Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Oh,
I use Chat GPT and Claude for all of this stuff.
tell me more.
Yeah. So if you just go to Chat GPT and you say, cut and paste, here are the 4 um, meals that I want to make. Can you create a shopping list? Here's the key: by grocery section. Those are your magic
Mic drop.
words,
Mic drop.
right?
There.
Because I don't want you to tell me you need 3 cups of celery and then a half a cup of heavy cream and then 2 pounds of ground beef. No, I want to know ground beef, chicken,
Yes, you
bacon,
do.
whatever that is. I want to know all those vegetables. And then I love a good order ahead app. Like Sam's Club is my jam
Mhm.
because I can just order. I don't know, Sam's Clubs are in different places around the country. Like when I lived in the Bay Area, no Sam's Club. I moved to around Northern California, around Sacramento, lots of Sam's Clubs. But I just order my groceries online and pick them up. So here's the actual practical breakdown of it. So I am cooking on Friday or Saturday, just depending on how the week roughs out, right? So I'm working backwards. So I'm doing a meal plan on Monday. And if you are low on money, then my best tip is to say, inventory what you have and figure out what you can make from that.
Hmm.
So if you know you have leftover shredded chicken, well, I'm definitely going to recommend my cream of chicken and wild rice soup. Like, yes, no brainer because it's amazing. But you need leftover like shredded chicken for that. So Monday you're going to do your meal plan. If you're like, I don't have time to be inventorying, I need to pick something, then just make a menu plan. You could do it on the back of a napkin if you want to. I don't care. Tuesday, you're going to make your grocery list and you're going to put your recipes into Chat GPT. It's going to spit out that shopping list because you're going to say, organize my shopping list by sections of the grocery store. And then you'll just take that shopping list and say, okay, what do I already have? Cross it off. And then you're either going to take that with you on Wednesday to go get it, or you're going to put your order in at Sam's or Safeway or Rayleigh's or Lion King, whatever you do. And they're going to bring it out to you. Like, I mean, what an amazing time we live in, right,
I
friends?
Mhm.
know.
It's just the
Mhm.
best thing ever. And you're just praying that you're getting a shopper who has actually shopped for their family before. Because I know I've had the 15-year-old bagger
Mhm.
boy do it. And when, I wanted onions, I got the what do you call it? The fried onions that you have on
Mhm.
Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Like I've had that happen before too. So you're getting all those ingredients. Thursday is prep day where you're just going to chop up your celery, you're going to chop up your onions, you're going to brown your ground beef, do whatever you need to do, and then you cook. So it's a little bit each day, but then when you're doing your cooking, you're only doing like maybe 2 to 3 hours at the most of cooking. And what that does, like I was talking about before, Saturday night is your main meat meal, and you can mix these up accordingly, but do whatever you want to do. Sunday afternoon is soup. Sunday night, family favorite. Monday, you're doing the leftovers of that chicken into chicken quesadillas, chicken tacos, whatever you want. Tuesday is the leftover soup. Wednesday is the leftover family favorite like lasagna. Thursday, we're going out to eat because we have cooked and saved our family so much money. And Friday, we're doing some kind of pizza, whether it's
mm.
in our pizza oven, a frozen pizza, English muffins with tomatoes. I don't care. It's everybody needs some pizza every once in a while. And so here's the beautiful thing. One, if anybody in your family says, what's for dinner? You just say, go look at the fridge. That's where I've put all the meals, because I don't know why that feels like the judgiest question in the world.
No,
right?
I get angry.
Right.
Well, yeah. I get angry. Like, how dare you?
Great word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How dare you ask me that? What are you making for dinner?
Right.
Not a good response, which is why my husband took over the dinner making.
Oh, so smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was fed up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because then also I didn't like the responses.
Well, when I'll never forget this TikTok that I'm glad I didn't know who posted it, because anyway, his life would have been in danger. He goes, imagine coming home after a long day at school to this, and it's a crock pot. And I was like, shut up, you little punk.
Yeah, I've seen that. And
you've seen that?
Yes, and that has been a response in my home. My kids don't like crock pot food. But you know what? It's okay.
Wait till they're out on their own and they come home to something that smells delicious. They're going to be so great, because I saw that video as part of a response, and the response was this guy in his 20s. He goes, what I would do to come home to a crock pot full of food. And it's so true, right?
True.
It's so true. What is it? Somebody is out there doing like a smear campaign among high schoolers about crock pots. And anyway,
okay.
I love
that's
my
a
kids
great
because they're in their 30s. Yeah, my kids are in their 30s. They love good food. Your kids will be redeemed, but they have to go through a punk phase. Sorry about that. Just
they have to go through a no crock pot phase.
Right, exactly.
Well, I do like your plan, Kathi, because it doesn't feel so overwhelming. Like the 7 hours of deciding, making lists, going to the store, all that, like that does feel like it could take 7 hours. But if you break it up a little bit every day, it feels more manageable for those of us who get overwhelmed or who just don't have that block of time in our daily schedule.
Right. Because who has hours and hours and hours to be able to do that? And for me, it's the decision making. That is the part that's overwhelming. Trying to figure out something everybody will like. And I'll just give another little tip for those kids who are like, when you tell them what's for dinner, is to have them start cooking as early as possible, as young as possible, because autonomy will help you figure out if you get some decision making, but you have to become part of the process then. And we want our kids to be able to feed themselves. This is a really key thing that they need to go into the world knowing how to do. And we can equip them by getting them involved sooner rather than later. Instead of, does this please my master? No, we're not doing that.
Totally. I am not about let's please the master. No.
No.
It's like you will eat what's in front of you or you will not eat. I actually really that was a thing for me. And I don't have picky eaters. And I think it's because I was like, there will be no picky eaters in this house. Like you will eat what I make, because this has been, this has taken some effort.
And there are some kids and adults too who have, if you're telling me, Kathi, you have to eat that green pepper or you go hungry, it's hungry. I choose hungry because I did not grow out of it. I hate the taste of them. I'm 57. I think I get to say I don't like green peppers. Right. And I feel like we all get a couple of give me's, and there are real disorders. I think it's called AFRID, AFRID. I can't remember exactly. Please forgive me. But like the texture just is, and some of the taste is really, really difficult. And I respect that. But yeah, there are some people, there are some kids who it's like, oh, it's brown, I don't eat it. It's like, well, you're going to miss out on a lot of great things. And so, yes, knowing your kid and knowing when, if you have a kid who normally wants to go there and they're really resisting, I think it's okay to say, you know what, you don't have to this time, but we're going to come back and try this again in a couple of months, because taste buds change and kids have more taste buds per square whatever than adults do. Ours die off. And so, they are more sensitive to food, but we want to have adventurous kids. We want to have kids who are going to try it and just say, you know what, right now, no, thank you. But at least to try.
We had a foreign exchange student, and he would not, like, he showed up to our house and he would not eat anything green, any vegetables, period. But by the end of the year, he was eating salad. And to this day, he will call me and say, Krista, I'm eating salad. In his cute little accent.
Lovely.
I know. So, I mean, people can grow.
People can grow. We really can.
Well, so, okay, Kathi, give us your top hits, some of your highlights from the book of what are your favorite soups?
Yeah. So there is a tomato gin soup in there that it is a crowd pleaser. Now, I will tell you,
gin.
Gin, Gin.
I love alcohol in food.
Well, there you go. I wrote that just for you then.
It tastes so good in food. Like, I'm not even someone who likes gin, but in soup, I'd love gin.
Yeah. I have 2 glasses of alcohol every year like clockwork. I'm not a drinker, but the gin just brightens it.
Yes.
And all the alcohol cooks off, but it has a bacon base. And it's a creamy tomato soup. And then my favorite sandwich in the thing, this is when you're like, okay, we're just going decadent. We're not having anything healthy today. It's called a Cuban sandwich. So it's basically like a grilled cheese with mayo and mustard and ham. And you have it with pickles, and that with the tomato gin soup is everything good in life. It is everything. And I just trick myself by saying it has tomatoes, and there's lots of pickles. It's fine. But for fall, because we're all fall girlies, and we all, I'm sure, love like an apple picking experience and love a lot of, wonderful spices in our food. There's an apple cake in the book that is just, you're going to look at it and you're like, oh, it doesn't get very tall. It's a very dense cake, but oh my goodness, it's so amazing. And then as we get into like spring and summer, the Greek lemon orzo soup is, it's so bright and wonderful. It just makes me so happy. But if you want a free recipe, that cream of chicken and wild rice soup, if you just go on Amazon, we do have a little free booklet. It's called Soups On. It's Soups On by Kathi Lipp, and we repeat some of the recipes because it's more about showing how to plan your meals. But we have that soup recipe in there, and it's one of my favorites. We've got other great recipes. I mean, there's over 100 recipes, and only 24 of them are soup. But there's a wonderful one too. I'll tell you this because, again, fall girlies. It is an overnight warm oatmeal with apples and apricots. That is just, it's like a bowl full of comfort. I'm addicted to it. I really am. And
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Do you do it in the crock pot or do you not?
I do.
Because how does it not burn? I feel like even when I do low, whenever I try, and it gets a weird texture by the morning. So help me.
Are you using quick oats or are you using steel cut oats?
I've tried both.
Okay, steel cut oats is what I use. And you're right, it can get a little crispy on the bottom. So if it does get crispy on the bottom, I just take, the stuff off the top of that bottom. Okay. And I'll but I'm making such a big pot of it because it's so good to put in the fridge and just scoop out how much you want during the week. And then, throw on some strawberries or blueberries or something like that. But you really only can on low keep it in the crock pot for 8 hours. So you're doing it right before you go to bed. And you're picking it up right after. Now, you could do this on the stovetop too. It'll probably take like a half hour, 45 minutes, and it still will be great.
Okay. That's a great crowd and ski season.
Yes.
Even, like before, I mean, I could just see before a day of skiing, like, or snowshoeing or whatever, like everyone's getting a great because that's very filling. It's very
Yes.
hearty and
Yeah.
warm before people head out into which we live in a snowy climate. So I'm always looking for like those kind of meals that people can take real quick.
Yeah, I do have a week in the cookbook about, feeding a crowd and how to do that. Especially, so many people have food sensitivities or allergies, and how do you feed a bunch of people when you have to be careful about that kind of stuff? And so it's really about making more of a bar and adding in ingredients, because I don't cook my oatmeal with milk. I cook it with water, or you can either way. You can do it with milk or you can do it with water, and then add in those things later on.
It's
And
very European of you, Kathi. That's what
why,
the
thank
Europeans
you.
do.
Well, and in a different cookbook, under a different book, Accidental Homesteader, where we talk about a lot of these things, like one of my favorite recipes is raclette. Have you had that before?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I haven't.
I studied abroad in Switzerland in college.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Okay.
And then raclette was raclette and fondue. Those were the two things.
Okay. So Alex, what it is, it's like a grill that you can grill vegetables, meats, that kind of thing. And then there's a cheese called raclette that you get at Whole Foods or on Amazon or at Trader Joe's. They have it at Trader Joe's. And you put it into these little trays and you heat it up. And raclette means to scrape. So you just scrape that cheese on top of the meat and vegetables. And we do it over smashed baby potatoes. And you don't need to buy my book to get that recipe. You can find that recipe anywhere online. It's I'll send you the word in. Well, Krista knows it.
Do you have a raclette grill? Like, do you?
I do. We've got two.
Okay.
We've got one for vegetables because we have vegetarians come, and then we have one for the meats and stuff. And we cheat. We do not like sweet pickles, but we put dill pickles on top of them.
Yes, I'm with you.
Oh my goodness.
No, say no to the sweet pickles.
But Alex, it is the best. I mean, Krista, back me up on this. It is like the best gather around.
Yes.
People come to our house, and Roger said, we should just buy a stack of raclette grills, because everybody buys one when they leave, because it's so much fun. You want to take it home to your kids. You want to take it home to the next time you're having a party and everybody comes over and you're all there with your little grill, and it's so much fun and it's so delicious.
Because it feels like an experience. I think that's what I like about fondue. Fondue's the same, raclette and fondue.
Yes.
It's more than just the food. It's the experience you're having together. It's very different. And I like that. I mean, the Swiss don't have a ton of cuisine, but the ones they have are very communal and cheese oriented, which, sign me up for that.
Cheese oriented. It's so funny. We love that so much. We named one of our chickens Rocky. Because
cute.
All of our chickens were named after cheeses, and we couldn't call it chicken raclette, but we called them Rocky in honor. It was Rocky and Whiz, and then we had Bullwinkle that was bull mozzarella cheese. Like, we're a cheese family. Now, Alex, when you do this, the cheese is going to smell foul, but it's so good.
Trust us. Just trust, Alex.
Raclette. So it's a little table grill that you do inside.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Exactly. Okay. And it doesn't smoke or anything like that. It's it's very safe. I wouldn't do it with toddlers, but I would do it with anybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Kathi, let's talk for a minute about Sabbath. Yeah. And a lot of our listeners are in midlife. And so they might have more time than they've had before. They also might not, just depending on circumstances and caregiving and work. And
absolutely.
Why do you think it's so hard for us as women, especially in this stage of life, to practice Sabbath? And before you even answer that, can you define for our listeners what you mean when you use that word?
Yeah. So, many of us are familiar with the Sabbath that was ordered in the Old Testament, right? And people broke the Sabbath and they were put to death. Yeah. If you're new to the Christian faith, we don't do that anymore. It's all cool. But Jesus talked about the Sabbath being made for man, not man for the Sabbath.
Mhm.
And my understanding of that is this is a gift to us, that everything that we have been assigned to do in this life, we we can accomplish in 6 days. Now, I am also a fallible human being and don't always get to do everything that I'm supposed to do in 6 days, and it often will spill into that other day. But I look at Sabbath, my understanding from scripture is that it's a time to honor God, a time to connect with those you love, and a time to remember what God has done for you. And so we try to incorporate a little bit of each of those things. One of them is worship, whether we go to church or, we live an hour and a half from our church. So we oftentimes will watch the service online. And by the way, we're with our church because Roger and I are with each other, and I'm okay with that. Everybody has to figure out what this means to them, but that's what
Mhm.
it means to us. Then, to remember what God has provided. Sometimes we'll take a Sunday afternoon drive, and we live not too far from Lake Tahoe. And, if you want to see God's glory, that's not a bad place to be hanging out. And then we get to be with each other. And so that's what I mean by Sabbath. When we talk about why is it so hard, I'm going to show my age here right now with my young friends here. I remember a time when TV stations went off at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Like, right? You might not have even known that was a thing,
Mhm.
but
I
they
mean,
would,
I think that sounds familiar. Like,
yeah,
oh, yeah,
yeah,
maybe.
maybe, yes. Ask your moms,
Yeah.
ask your moms. But, they would play, I can't remember what it was. Was it the Star Spangled Banner or something like that? And it would go off. And I think about that compared to now, where I can be on social media 24/7. I can order on Amazon 24/7. I can watch TV, who even watches TV, but I can watch Hulu or Netflix 24/7. I can send texts to my friends or Voxes all night. They won't necessarily get them. But
Mhm.
just the other night, I had a friend who lives on the other side of the country and said, somebody just knocked on my door. Is there somebody in this group? It was our Dayspring group. Is there somebody I could call if I needed to? And I'm like, it was 10:15. I'm like, I'm up. So if you need to call, and I'm glad that was available. I'm very glad for all these, but it also gives us the impression that our lives should be 24/7.
Mm.
And we have to rest is rebellion. It really is. I I don't know if you guys saw this on my email when I sent them back and forth, but I have a well-being notice on there, particularly for the people who work for me. Receiving this email outside of normal working hours, managing work and life responsibilities is unique for everyone. I have sent this email at a time that works best for me. Please respond at a time that works for you.
Yeah, I love that.
I had to do that
Mhm.
because my my employees would get an email from me, at, I don't know, 9 o'clock at night, my time, because I just thought of something. It's midnight their time, and they're
Mhm.
apologizing that they didn't get back to me. And I'm like, guys, I'm sending it at a time that worked for me because I had a thought, but I'm not
Mhm.
expecting you to do that. And
Mhm.
then I put down there, I typically respond to emails 24 to 48 business hours after receiving. Because I've had people who say, I sent that 3 days ago. You sent it at 4:50 on a Friday,
Mhm.
and it is now 8:30 on a Monday. Yeah, it's that's an hour of business time since you've sent it.
Mhm.
And so everybody just needs to calm down. You know,
Make some soup.
Yes, make some soup. My agent told me there are no emergencies in Christian publishing. And I think about that all the time. Some people who are listening to this are working in emergency situations, and we are so grateful for them. But I'm not one of them.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad we talked about that, because I do think we just need a reset every once in a while to remember we are human. God gives us constraints. We need to sleep. He made us that way on purpose. And the rhythm of the week, and you're saying that for you, Sabbath is a day of the week, but it could be another chunk of time that is half a day or something that works, but the intention is there. And I would say the logging off is probably part of it too in today's world.
Yes. I will always have my cell phone with me because I have 4 adult children. And if there's an emergency, I want to be their first call, not their last thought. Right. But I don't need to be on 24/7. I don't need to be responding to everybody. And I really think of Sabbath as being a disruption to our routine. I'm a very productive girl. Everybody on this call is a very productive girl. And we are not supposed to be producing all the time, because if we rest can be anxiety producing if we are not doing it regularly, if we have no practice in it. And if Sabbath needs to be a half day here, a half day there, or even just a half day, when we talk about the practice of Sabbath, I think it's such a great way to think about it. We're practicing. Okay, because I started with soup for lunch, and then I kept growing. And now it's like, I almost want to stop being productive earlier on Saturday so I can hunker down. And, I'll just tell you, we're recording this at a really interesting time. The elections are coming up. I mean, I know you're going to be airing this later on, and people in the future know what's happening. We do not. And Roger and I are logging off for the entire weekend, because it's just, we have to practice our peace, and we have to protect our peace. And it just feels like the right decision to make. So we're going to have an extended Sabbath this weekend.
That's that's just so good, so healthy. And the way I always think about it in my own head is I'm a human, I'm not a machine.
Right.
And what it reminds me of that, because I am pretty high capacity. And so I can have a lot of things. And I know, right? We all are. And we can have a lot of plates spinning, but that doesn't mean I should always have those plates spinning. And so it reminds me, like, I'm human with a soul, and I need to cultivate the soul. And that's a part of living a wholehearted life. Like, if my goal is thriving, then I have to practice those things that lead to wholehearted thriving. And some of that is work. Like for me, and that's true. I mean, that's actually proven in research that we are meant to work. So that is a part of thriving, but so is rest. And so is, taking those deep breaths and enjoying life, because that's a part of it as well. And we have to remember it's a both and. It's not a this or that. It's an and.
Yes. I think about it this way. My job provides a lot of joy for me. Just what you're saying. I am a better person when I have a job that I love, and, not everybody gets that privilege, and it really is a privilege. I have my spiritual practices that bring a lot of peace. My home provides a lot of joy and peace. And Sabbath is about meeting that joy and peace that we so desperately need. And I can have a lot of joy, but if I don't also have a lot of peace in my life, it starts to drain that joy. And I can have a lot of peace in my life, but if I don't experience that joy, it starts to drain that peace. And so I need to be looking at what is contributing to those things. And so much Sabbath is such a reset for both of those things. And it makes me think about, what do I need to get rid of? In my business, I'm constantly talking about, what do I need to launch? What do I need to leverage? What do I need to let go?
Ooh, that's good.
we ask those questions every single month. And in my Sabbath time, I think on those things for my own personal life. We just stepped back from a volunteer opportunity that was not aligning with us.
Mhm.
But as we were stepping back from that, we found out about a need in our community that Roger and I are pretty, I wouldn't say uniquely, we are well suited to meet this other opportunity. And it's like we could give it a full-throated yes, where that other volunteer opportunity, every time we thought about it, I'm like, do we have to go? Is there something else we could do? Where this one, we show up with joy and we have peace about it.
Mhm. Oh my gosh. That's so good, Kathi. That is so good. All of those, I just felt like little gold nuggets just everywhere. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, because it is wisdom. That is wisdom speaking. And I appreciate that so much about you.
Thank you.
As we close today, are there any other resources you would recommend for people who are, just wanting to grow in this realm?
Yes. There are a couple. What a great question. Why am I, it's so funny. I'm losing the name of it right now. Oh my goodness. This is making me so upset. Okay. Just a couple of thoughts. I hate that I'm recommending one of my own resources, but I do have a book called Overwhelmed, that if you are just feeling like you are at the end of what you're trying to do, that is a good resource. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry is a wonderful book that will reset your thinking about this. That is not my book, by the way. Sorry.
Well, and we had John Mark Comer on the podcast talking about that book. So we can link to that podcast as well.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's a miracle. That's amazing. I love that. And then I mentioned that free resource. If you're in a place financially where you're like, I can't order another book, I get it, friend. But Soup's on, free download from Amazon. Just get that. You'll get the idea of what we're trying to do there. And I think that that'll be really helpful to so many of you. And here's what I love. Like, I love that I can recommend podcasts. Like, I've recommended your podcast to people because I feel like when I listen to a podcast like what you guys are doing here on Our Time to Rise, or, I have a couple of other favorites, it resets where we are. It makes me think about things differently. And when I'm able to think about things differently, it lets me go through those kind of questions. What do I launch? What do I leverage? What do I let go? What am I doing right now that is not in alignment with God's purpose for my life? Is 6 days, do I not have enough to, and obviously we all have emergency situations. I use an app called Motion that organizes my day. And you know what? I hate this app right now because it's saying, Kathi, you're trying to fit, 20 pounds of potatoes into a 5-pound bag. And so if your work life is what is overburdening you, Motion, they have a free trial. You might want to take a look and say, oh, I'm ridiculous. Got it. Okay. I'm trying to do too much. I think those are all really good aspects to think about and learn about.
Thank you, Kathi. That's so helpful. Well, thank you for being on today. And it's just so fun to be with you during this time. We love you.
During this time that's not a pandemic. Yeah.
Yes. More non-pandemic meetups. I am down for that.
All right. Bye, Kathi.